Hello guys, and welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle. We're at it again with the Berkshire Hathaway Chairman's Letter to Shareholders in 1982, Part 2, Part Dos. And we are starting where we had left off with the insurance industry conditions, and then hopefully we'll finish up. I'm sure we will. I don't see why we won't. I don't know why I said hopefully. Alright, without further ado, let's just get right into it. We show below an updated table of the industry statistics we utilized in last year's annual report. Its message is clear. Underwriting results in 1983 will not be a sight for the squeamish. So it has 1972 all the way to 1982, and it has yearly changes in premium writings. So 72 is at 10.2, 73, 8. 74, 6.2, 75, 11, 76, 21.9, 77, 19.8, 78, 12.8, 79, 10.3, 86, 81, 3.9, 82, 5.1. And then it has yearly changes in premiums earning. And I'm just going to start with 72, go my way down to 82, 10.9, 8.8, 6.9. 9.6, 19.4, 20.5, 14.3, 10.4, 7.8, 4.1, 4.6. And then it has combined ratios after policyholders' dividends, starting with 1972, 96.2, 99.2, 105.4, 107.9, 102.4, 97.2, 97.5, 100.6, 103.1, 106.0, 109.5. Sources: best aggregates and averages. The best data reflects the experience of practically the entire industry, including stocks, mutual, and reciprocal companies. The combined ratio represents total operating and losses costs as compared to revenue from premiums. A ratio below 100 indicates an underwriting profit, and one above 100 indicates losses. And it looks like out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those 11 years have been at loss. So, not a good thing. For reasons outlined in last year's report, as long as the annual gain in industry premiums written falls well below 10%, you can expect the underwriting picture in the next year to deteriorate. This will be true even in today's lower general rates of inflation. With the number of policies increasing annually, medical inflation far exceeding general inflation, and concepts of insurance liability broadening, it is highly unlikely that yearly increases in insured losses will fall much below 10%. You should be further aware that the 1982 combined ratio of 109.5 represents a best case estimate. In a given year, it is possible for an insurer to show almost any profit number it wishes, particularly if it 1. Writes long tail businesses, coverages where current costs can be only estimated because claim payments are long delayed. 2. Has been adequately reserved in the past, or 3. Is growing very rapidly. There are indicators that several large insurers opted in 1982 for obscure accounting and reserving maneuvers that masked significant deterioration in their underlying businesses. In insurances, as elsewhere, the reaction of weak management to weak operation is often weak accounting. It's difficult for an empty sack to stand upright. The great majority of management, however, try to play it straight, but even management of integrity may subconsciously be less willing in poor profit years to fully recognize adverse loss trends. Industry statistics indicate some deterioration in loss reserving practices during 1982, and the true combined ratio is likely to be modestly worse than indicated by our table. The conventional wisdom is that 1983 or 1984 will see the worst of underlying experiences, and then, as in the past, the cycle will move on significantly and subtly toward better results. We disagree because of a pronounced change in the competitive environment, hard to see for many years, but now quite visible. To understand the change, we need to look at some major factors that affect levels of corporate profitability generally. Business in industries with both substantial overcapacity and a commodity in product, undifferentiated in any customer important way by factors such as preference, performance, appearance, service support, etc., are prime candidates for profit troubles. These may be escaped true if prices or costs are administered in some manner and thereby insulted at least partially from normal market forces. Insulated at least partially from normal market forces. This administration can be carried out A. legally through government intervention. Until recently, this category included pricing for truckers and deposit costs for financial institutions. B. illegally through collision. Or C. extra legally through OPIC-style foreign catalyzation, which tag along benefits for domestic non-cartel operations. If, however, costs and prices are determined by full-bore competition, there is more than ample capacity and the buyer cares little about whose product or distribution services he uses. Industry economics are almost certain to be unexceeding. They may well be disastrous. Hence, the constant struggle of every vendor to establish and emphasize special quantities of product or services. This works with candy bars. Customers buy by brand name, not by asking for a 2-ounce candy bar, but doesn't work with sugar. How often do you hear, "I'll have a cup of coffee with cream and C&H sugar, please"? In many industries, differentiation simply can't be made meaningful. A few producers in such industries may consistently do well if they have a cost advantage that is both wide and sustainable. By definition, such expectations are few, and in many industries are non-existent. For the great majority of companies selling commodity products, a depressing equation of business economics prevails. Persistent overcapacity without administered prices or costs equals poor profitability. Of course, overcapacity may eventually self-correct, either as capacity shrinks or demand expands. Unfortunately, for the participants, such correction often are long delayed. When they finally occur, the rebound to prosperity frequently produces a persuasive enthusiasm for expansion that, without a few years, gain creates overcapacity and new profitless environment. In other words, nothing fails like success. What finally determines levels of long-term profitability in such industries is the ratio of supply tight to supply ample years. Frequently, that ratio is dismal. It seems as if most recent supply tight periods in our textile businesses, it occurred some years back, lasted the better part of a morning. In some industries, however, capacity tight conditions can last a long time. Sometimes actual growth in demand will outrun forecasted growth for an extended period. In other cases, adding capacity requires very long laid times because complicated manufacturing facilities must be planned and built. But in the insurance business, to return to the subject, capacity can be instantly created by capital plus an underwriter's unwillingness to sign his name. Even capital is less important in a world in which state-sponsored guarantee funds protect many policyholders against insolvency, under almost all conditions except that of fear for survival, produced perhaps a stock market debacle or a truly major natural disaster. The insurance industry operates under the competitive sword of substantial capacity. Generally, also despite heroic attempts to do otherwise, the industry sells a relatively undifferentiated commodity type product. Many insurers, including the manager of large businesses, do not even know the names of their insurers. Insurance, therefore, would seem to be a textbook case of an industry usually faced with the deadly combination of excess capacity and a commodity product. Why, then, was underwriting, despite the existence of cycles, generally profitable over many decades? From 1950 through 1970, the industry combined ratio averaged 99.0, allowing all investment income plus 1% of premiums to flow through the profits. The answer lies primarily in the historical methods of regulations and distributions. For much of this century, a large portion of the industry worked, in effect, with a legal quasi-administered pricing system fostered by insurance regulators, which, while price competition exists, it was not persuasive among the larger companies. The main competition was for agents who were courted via various non-priced related strategies. For the giants of the industry, most rates were set through negotiations between industry bureaus. Bureaus? It's in quotes. Or through companies acting in accord with their recommendations. And state regulators. Dignified haggling occurred, but it was between company and regulator rather than between company and customer. When the dust settled, Giant A charged the same price as Giant B, and both companies and agents were prohibited by law from cutting such filed rates. The company state negotiated prices included specific profit allowance, and when loss data indicates that current prices were unprofitable, both company management and state regulators expected that they would act together to correct the situation. Thus, most of the pricing actions of the giants of the industry were gentlemanly, predictable, and profit-producing. Of prime importance, and in contrast to the way most of the business world operated, insurance companies could legally price their way to profitability even in the face of substantial overcapacity. The day is gone. Although part of the old structure remains, far more than enough new capacity exists outside of the structure to force all parties, old and new, to respond. The new capacity uses various methods of distribution and is not reluctant to use price as a prime competitive weapon. Indeed, it releases that use. In the process, customers have learned that insurance is no longer a one-price business. They won't forget. Future profitability of the insurer will be determined by current competitive characteristics, not past ones. Many managers have been slow to recognize this. It's not only generals that prefer to fight the last war, but most businesses and investment analysis also come from the rear view mirror. It seems clear to us, however, that only one condition will allow the insurance industry to achieve a significant importance underwriting results. That is the same condition that will allow better results for the aluminum, copper, or corn producer, a major narrowing of the gap between demand and supply. Unfortunately, there can be no surge in demand for insurance policies comparable to one that might produce a market tightness in copper or aluminum. Rather, the supply of available insurance coverage must be curtailed. Supply is in the context is mental rather than physical. Plants or companies need not to be shut. Only the willingness of underwriters to sign their names need to be curtailed. The contraction will not happen because of generally poor profit levels. Bad profits produce much handwriting and finger pointing, but they do not lead major sources of insurance capacity to turn their backs on very large chunks of business, thereby sacrificing market share and industry significance. Instead, major capacity withdrawals require a shock factor, such as a natural or financial mega disaster. One might occur tomorrow or many years from now. The insurance business, even taking investment income into account, will not be particularly profitable in the meantime. When supply ultimately contracts, large amounts of businesses will be available for the few with large capital capacity, a willingness to commit it, and in place distribution system. We would expect great opportunities for our insurance subsidiaries as such a time. During 1982, our insurance underwriting deteriorated far more than did the industries. From a profit position well above average, we slipped into a performance modestly below average. The best swing was in national indemnity traditional coverage. Lines that have been highly profitable for us in the past are now priced at levels that guarantee underwriting losses. In 1983, we expect our insurance group to recover an average performance in an industry in which average is very poor. Two of our stars, Mill Thornton at Cypress and Floyd Taylor at Kansas Fire and Casualty, continue their outstanding records of producing an underwriting profit every year since joining us. Bolt Milton and Floyd simply are incapable of being average. They maintain a passionate proprietary attitude towards their operations and have developed a business culture centered upon unusual cost consciousness and customer service. It shows on their scorecards. During 1982, parent company responsible for most of our insurance operations was given to Mike Goldberg. Planning, recruiting, and monitoring all have shown significant improvement since Mike replaced me in this role. Geico continues to be managed with a zeal of efficiency and value of the customer that virtually guarantees unusual success. Jack Bryan and Bill Seidner are achieving the most elusive of human goals, keeping things simple and remembering what you set out to do. In Loy Simpson, additionally, Geico has the best investing manager in the property casualty business. We are happy with every aspect of this operation. Geico is a magnificent illustration of the high profit expectation we described earlier in discussing commodity industries with overcapacity. A company with a wide and sustainable cost average, our 35% interest in Geico represents about $250 million of premium volume, an amount considerably greater than all of the direct volume we produce. Issuance of equity. Berkshire and Blue Chip are considered merger in 1983. If it takes place, it will involve an exchange of stock based upon an identically valued valuation method applied to both companies. The one other significant issuance of shares of Berkshire or its affiliated companies that occurred during present management's tenure was in the 1978 merger of Berkshire with Diversified Retailing Company. Our share insurance follows a simple basic rule. We will not issue shares unless we receive as much intrinsic business value as we give. Such a policy might seem axiomatic. Why, you might ask? Would anyone issue dollar bills in exchange for 50-cent pieces? Unfortunately, many corporate managers have been willing to do just that. The first choice of these managers in making acquisitions may be to use cash or debt, but frequently the CEO's craving outpace each in credit resources. Certainly mine always have. Frequently, also, these cravings occur when his own stock is settling far below intrinsic business value. This state of affairs produces a moment of truth. At the point, as Yogi Berra has said, you can observe a lot just by watching. For shareholders, then will find which objective and management truly For shareholders, then, will find which objective the management truly prefers: expansion of domain or maintenance of ownership wealth. We need to choose between these objectives occurs for some simple reason. Companies often sell in stock market below their intrinsic business value, but when a company wishes to sell out completely in a negotiated transaction, it inevitably wants to, and usually can, receive full business value in whatever kind of currency that value is to be delivered. If cash is to be used in payment, the seller's calculation of value received couldn't be easier. If stock of the buyer is to be the currency, the seller's calculation is still relatively easy. Just figure the market value in cash and what it is to receive in stock. Meanwhile, the buyer wishing to use his own stock as currency for the purchase has no problem if the stock is selling in the market at full intrinsic value. But suppose it is selling at only half intrinsic value. In that case, the buyer is faced with the unhappy prospect of using a substantially undervalued currency to make its purchase. Ironically, were the buyer to instead be a seller of its entire business, it too could negotiate for, and probably get, full intrinsic business value. But when the buyer makes a partial sale of itself, and that is what the issuance of shares to make an acquisition amount to, it can customarily get no higher value set on its shares than the market chooses to grant it. The acquirer, who nevertheless barges ahead and ends up using an undervalued market value currency to pay for a full valued negotiated value property. In effect, the acquirer must give up $2 of value to receive $1 of value. Under such circumstances, a marvelous business purchase at a fair sales price becomes a terrible buy. For gold valued as gold cannot be purchased intelligently through the utilization of gold, or even silver valued as lead. If, however, the thirst for size and action is strong enough, the acquirer's manager will find ample retaliations for such a value-destroying issuance of stock. Friendly investment bankers will reassure him as to the soundness of his actions. Don't ask the barber whether you need a haircut, because he will say, yes, of course you do. A few favorite rationalizations employed by stock issuing management follow. A. The company we're buying is going to be worth a lot more in the future, presumably so. It is the interest in the old business that is being traded away. Future prospects are implicated in the business valuation process. If 2 times is issued for X, the imbalance still exists when both parties double in business value. B. We have to grow. Who, it might be asked, is that we? For present shareholders, the reality is that all existing businesses shrinking when shares are issued. Were Berkshire to issue shares tomorrow for an acquisition, Berkshire would own everything that it now owns plus the new businesses. But your interest in such hard-to-match businesses as Sea Candy Shops, National Indemnity, etc., would automatically be reduced if 1. Your family owns a 120-acre farm, and 2. You invite a neighbor with 60 acres of comparable land to merge his farm into an equal partnership with you to be managing partners, then 3. Your managerial domain will have grown to 180 acres, but you will have permanently shrunk by 25% your family ownership interest in both acreage and crops. Managers who want to expand their domain at the expense of owners might better consider a career in government. Oof. C. Our stock is undervalued and we've minimalized its use in the deal. But we need to give the selling shareholders 51% of stock and 49% in cash so that the certain of those shareholders can get the tax-free exchange they want. The argument acknowledges that it is beneficial to the acquirer to hold down the issuance of shares, and we like that. But if it hurts the old owners to utilize shares on a 100% basis, it is very likely hurts on a 51% basis. After all, a man is not charmed if a spaniel defaces his lawn just because it's a spaniel and not a Saint Bernard. And the wishes of sellers can't be the determination of the best interest of the buyer. What would happen if, heaven forbid, the seller insists that a condition of merger the CEO of the acquirer be replaced? 3 ways to avoid the destruction of value for old owners. When shares are issued for acquisition, one is to have a true business value for business value merger, such as the Berkshire blue chip combination is intended to be. Such a merger attempt to be fair to shareholders of both parties, with each receiving just as much as it gives in terms of intrinsic business value. The Dart Industry Craft and Nabisco Standard Brands mergers appeared to be of this type, but they were the exceptions. It's not that acquirers wish to avoid such deals, it's just that they are very hard to do. The second route presents itself with the acquirer's stock sells at or above its intrinsic business value. In this situation, the use of stock as currency actually may enhance the wealth of the acquiring company's owners. Many mergers were accomplished on this basis in the 1965-69 period. The results were the converse of most of the activity since 1970. The shareholders of the acquired companies received very inflated currencies, frequently pumped up by dubious accounting and promotional techniques, and were the losers of wealth through such transactions. During the recent years, the second solution has been available to very few large companies. The exceptions have primarily been those companies in glamorous and promotional businesses to which the market temporarily attaches valuation at or above intrinsic business valuation. The third solution is for the acquirer to go ahead with the acquisition, but then subsequently repurchase a quantity of shares equal to the number issued in the merger. In this manner, what originally was a stock-for-stock merger can be converted effectively into a cash-for-stock acquisition. Repurchase of this kind are damage-repaired moves. Regular readers will correctly guess that we much prefer repurchases that directly enhance the wealth of owners instead of repurchases that merely repair previous damages. Scoring touchdowns is more exhilarating than recovering one's fumbles. But when a fumble has occurred, recovering is important, and we heartily recommend damage repair repurchases that turn a bad stock deal into a fair cash deal. The language utilized in mergers tends to confuse the issuers and encouraging irrational actions by managers. For example, dilution is usually carefully calculated on a pro forma basis for both book value and current earnings per share. Particular emphasis is given to the latter item. When the calculation is negative, dilutive, from the acquiring company's standpoint, a justified explanation will be made, internally, if not elsewhere. that the lines will cross favorably at some point in the future. While deals often fail to practice, they never fail to projections. If the CEO is visibly painting over a prospective acquisition, subordinates and consultants will supply the request projections to rationalize any price. Should the calculation produce numbers that are immediately positive, that is, anti-dilutive, for the acquirer, no comment is thought to be necessary. The attention given this form is dilution is overdone. Current earnings per share, or even earnings per share of the next few years, are an important variable in most business valuations, but far from all powerful. There have been plenty of mergers, non-dilutive in this limited sense, that were instantly value destroying for the acquirer, and some mergers that have diluted current and near-term earnings per share have in fact been value enhancing. What really counts is whether a merger is dilutive or anti-dilutive in terms of intrinsic business value, a judgment involving consideration of many variables. We believe calculation of dilution from this viewpoint will be important and too seldom made. A second language problem relates to the equation of exchange. If Company A announces that it will issue shares to merge with Company B, the process is customarily described as Company A to acquire Company B, or B sells A to A. Clearer things about the matter would result if a more awkward but more accurate descriptions were used. Part of A is sold to acquire B, or owners of B to receive part of A in exchange for their properties. In a trade, what you are giving is just as important as what you are getting. This remains true even when the final tally on what is being given is delayed. Subsequently, sales of common stock or convertible issues either the complete convertible issues either to complete the financing for a deal or to restore balance sheet strength must be fully counted in evaluating the fundamental mathematics of the original acquisition. If corporate pregnancy is going to be the consequence of corporate mating, the time to face the fact is before the moment of ecstasy. The way he uses words sometimes is fucking hilarious. Managers and directors might sharpen their thinking by asking themselves if they would sell 100% of their business on the same basis that they are being asked to sell part of it, and if it isn't smart to sell on such a basis, they should ask themselves why it is smart to sell a portion. A accumulation of small managerial stupidities will produce a major stupidity, not a major triumph. Las Vegas has been built upon the wealth transfers that occur when people engage in seemingly small, disadvantageous capital transactions. The giving versus getting factor can most easily be calculated in the case of registering investment companies. Assume investing company X, selling at 50% of asset value, wishes to merge with investing company Y. Assume also that company X therefore decides to issue share equal in market value to 100% of Y's asset value. Such a share exchange would leave X trading $2 of its previous intrinsic value for $1 of Y's intrinsic value. Protests would promptly come forth from both X's shareholders and the SEC, which rules on the fairness of registered investment company mergers. Such as transactions simply would not be allowed. In this case of manufacturing, services, financial companies, etc., values are not normally as precisely calculable as in the case of investing companies. But we have seen mergers in these industries that just as dramatically destroy value for the owners of the acquiring company, as was in the case of the hypothetical illustration above. The destruction could not happen if management and directors would assess the fairness of any transaction by using the same yardstick in the measurement of both businesses. Finally, a word should be said about the double whammy effect upon owners of the acquiring company when value-diluting stock issuances occur. Under such circumstances, the first blow is that loss of intrinsic business value that occurs through the merger itself. The second is the downward revision in market valuation that, quite rationally, is given to the now diluted business value. For current and prospective owners, understandably, will not pay as much for an asset lodged in the hands of a management that has a record of wealth destruction through unintelligent share insurances as they will pay for assets entrusted to a management with precisely equal operating talents, but a known disaster for anti-owner actions. Once management shows itself insensitive to the interest of owners, shareholders will suffer a long time from the price-value ratio afforded their stock relative to other stocks, no matter what assurances management gives that the value dilution action taken was one-of-a-kind event. Those assurances are treated by the market much as one bug in the salad. Those assurances are treated by the market much as one bug in the salad explanations are treated at restaurants. Such explanations, even accompanied by a new waiter, do not eliminate a drop in the demand, and hence market value, for salads, both on the part of the offered customer and his neighbor pondering what to order. Other things being equal, the highest stock market price relatives to intrinsic business value are given to the company whose managers have demonstrated their unwillingness to issue shares at any time on terms unfavorable to owners of the business. At Berkshire, or any company whose policies were determined, including Blue Chip and Wesco, we will issue shares only if our owner receives in business value as much as we give. We will not equate actively with progress or corporate size with owner wealth. Miscellaneous. This annual report is read by a varied audience, and it is possible that some members of the audience may be helpful to us in our acquisition programs. We prefer 1. Large purchases, at least $5 million of after-tax earnings. 2. Demonstrated consistent earning power. Future projections are of little interest to us, nor are turnaround situations. 3. Business earnings, good return on equity while employing little to no debt. 4. Management in place, we can't supply it. 5. Simple businesses, if there's a lot of technology, we won't understand it. 6. An offering price, we don't want to waste our time or that of our seller by taking even primarily about a transaction when price is unknown. We will not engage in unfriendly transactions. We can promise complete confidence and very fast answers as to possible interest, customarily within 5 minutes. Cash purchases are preferred, but we will consider the use of stock when it can be done on the basis described in the previous section. Our shareholders design contribution programs met with enthusiasm again this year. Okay, we talked about that last time, and that's great that they still did that. In a characteristically rash move, we have expanded world headquarters by 252 square feet, 17%. Coincidentally, with the signing of a new 5-year lease of 1,440 kilowatt plaza, the 5 The 5 people who worked here with me, John Atherin, Mike Goldberg, Laddie Kaiser, Vern McKenzie, and Bill Scott, outproduced corporate groups many times their number. A company organization lets all of us spend our time managing the business rather than managing each other. Charlie Munger, my partner in management, will continue to operate from Los Angeles whether or not the blue chip merger occurs. Charlie and I are interchangeable in business decisions. Distance impedes us not at all. We've always found a telephone call to be more productive than a half-day committee meeting. 2 of our managerial starts retire this year. Phil Leachy at 65 from National Debit Company and Ben Rosner at 79 from Associated Retail Stores. Both of these men made you, a shareholder of Berkshire, a good bit wealthier than you otherwise would have been. National Indemnity has been the most important operation in Berkshire growth. Phil and Jack Ringwalt, his predecessor, were the 2 prime movers in National Indemnity's success. Ben Rosner sold Associated Retail Stores to Diversified Retailing Company for cash in 1967, promised to stay on only until the end of this year, and then hit business home runs for us for the next 15 years. Both Ben and Phil ran their businesses for Berkshire with every bit of care and drive that they would have exhibited had they personally owned 100% of the businesses. No rules were necessary to enforce or even encourage this attitude. It was embedded in the character of these men long before we came on the scene. Their good character became our good fortune. If we can continue to attract managers with this quality of Ben and Phil, you need not to worry about Berkshire's future. Warren E. Buffett, Chairman of the Board. Get to like, share, subscribe, hit that bell icon so that way you know every time when I post. And leave a comment down below. What did you think about that very well described and understanding way of the way that they mergers can work? I really didn't understand mergers at all, and this gives me a very clear understanding of how they function. I feel like I need to read it again, truthfully, to even get through it. And really dig it in, but that was amazing, and I'm so grateful that I read it. So let me know what you guys think, how you feel. Do you guys like these part 2 sections, or do you prefer just one whole 1 hour one? Let me know, and until next time, guys, bye.